Good morning. It's just morning for me as I record this. Now, last night, that being Tuesday the 14th, CW aired both parts of Crisis on Infinite Earths finale. The last two parts. And well, there's no way I would have been able to review both parts one shot. So I'm rewatching them, the last two parts. Today, I'm going to review them separately. So this is my review for Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 4. So we started off with a flashback of sorts to how this all started. Like, how it all started with the Monitor. Before he became the Monitor, no mutton chops. This is like millennia earlier, 7 millennia earlier, I think they said it was. He and his wife are doing this experiment to get to the dawn of time that takes him to the antimatter universe, and it creates the Anti-Monitor. We then flash forward, sort of, because everyone's in the vanishing point. That's where we left off. We left off with everyone in the vanishing point. This is months later, and you got Ryan Choi narrating as he writes a letter to his wife, who's actually dead by now, but he's, telling the story. What's going on since then. He and Lex are building something, try to get him out of there. The Paragon of Hope, which is Supergirl, has seemed to have lost hope. Paragon of Courage, which is Batwoman, she's training, even though there's no one to fight, she's still training. And you have Jean, who always keeps meditating, because it's Jean. He's the Paragon of Honor, and Barry has gone missing. And I don't remember what Sarah was doing. Sarah was doing something, but Barry has gone missing. And, we cut to, there's a scene where we see all of Oliver's fights within the Arrowverse, all his big fights. And then it cuts to Oliver sitting there, and Jim Corrigan, or the original Spectre, tells him that everything that he has done has led to this moment. We go back to the vanishing point where Lex and Ryan Choi are doing their experiment. It doesn't work. When they try to send Lex through, which... Okay, I thought about this, okay? They said they needed someone to test this experiment on. Jean volunteers, and Kara's like, no, thanks for volunteering, Lex. Okay, I've said this to people before, where people was like, because at the end of the last one, Lex makes himself the Paragon of Truth. And people were like, oh, they're gonna beat the holy hell out of Lex. I'm like, they're going to basically kill Lex, people are saying, basically. And I keep saying, they can't. Like, oh, they're going to beat the holy hell out of Lex, and they're going to really hurt him, and they're going to torture him and stuff. They can't do anything to him. Because if they do, they're going to lose against the Anti-Monitor. I don't know if people got that or not, but people were like, doing drawings of the Paragons, and they're putting the Kingdom Come Superman in there. He's not a Paragon anymore. Lex is now the Paragon of Truth. And people were kind of, I think, dismissing that. Like, no, he's not a Paragon. He just did that. He's not really a Paragon. Well, if that were true, then they'd be screwed no matter what. And they'd be screwed if that was true. Because if he just made himself appear and he wasn't a Paragon, then there's no way to defeat the Anti-Monitor. Which, how the Paragons are used to defeat the Anti-Monitor, I don't know. I'll get to that, but it's just like, Lex Luthor is a Paragon, deal with it, okay? I don't know why they did that, Because for me, everything with Lex Luthor in these parts was just used for filler. Like in part 2, Lex's part was used as filler as they try to find the Kingdom Come Superman. Like, they first go to one Earth, they find out that Superman's dead. They go to another Earth, and they get in that Tom Welling cameo. And then Lex disappears because he doesn't think it's worth it. And they go to the Kingdom Come Earth, and they take down, and then the whole thing with turning that Superman evil with the Book of Destiny, that Lex Luthor is basically filler to pad out the time, to kind of pad out the time within the crossover, and it's no different here. Lex is used to pad out the crossover because they needed more padding. He's used because at this point, they should all be working together. No conflict between any of them. Okay, I'm sorry. This fourth part, with the exception of one teeny tiny little scene, which I'll get to, was padding. Alright? Going into part 4, we were promised this big battle in the dawn of time. That's maybe 10 minutes of the episode, towards the end. The rest is padding to... I don't know. Maybe they knew they had to split it out through 5 different episodes, so they had to add some padding. But this entire episode was basically padding. And I'm not saying it's bad. No, it's enjoyable, sure. Especially at one point, which we'll get to. But the whole thing with Lex Luthor is, by this point, especially since they've been at the fashion point for months, they should have all been on the same page with no conflict, except the only thing they should be focusing on is trying to defeat the Anti-Monitor and get everyone back that they lost. Because if you look at it from Lex Luthor's point of view here, he lost his mother and his sister. And even though Lex is a bad guy, alright, he's a villain, that's his family, right? So even though John Cryer is great in a role, don't get me wrong, even though you want to hammer in that Lex is still a bad guy no matter what happens, save that for when Supergirl comes back. And we'll get to what I mean, like still a bad guy, when we get to part 5, because I'll explain why they had to prove he's still a bad guy. But we're here. It just seemed like having Lex double-cross them again was a bit just padding for time. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we'll get to... We gotta continue on. So, Barry comes back, and he says he's been in the Speed Force. He said he just left, because, there's no time. In the Speed Force, there's no time in the Vanishport either, but they say he's been gone for months. Now, going into this, it was said that it would only be 1 month, but I guess it's more than 1 month. Because you got Ryan Choi has a beard, and the one question I thought was, okay, Ryan Choi has a beard, why doesn't Barry? Well, Barry's been in the Speed Force, so there you go, no beard. And, and you say, oh, but he was in the Speed Force before and he came out with a beard. Well, now he was only in there like a few seconds, technically. But for them, it's been months. Right? You could nitpick other things. Why isn't Kate's hair longer? Or, why doesn't John have a beard? Well, first of all, that's just a hologram. He doesn't age, even though the actor does, but it doesn't age, it doesn't grow a beard, nothing. And why is Lex... Obviously, Lex Luthor shaves his head. Maybe not this version, I don't know. But why isn't Lex's beard a little bit longer? Should have been like a little bit, I don't know. Could add it a stage, I don't know. But before they explain it, it works. Oliver shows up, who's not a Spectre, and he says that the Speed Force is the key to stopping the Anti-Monitor. So he takes everyone. He gives Barry, he touches Barry on the forehead, and he tells him that Barry now has the power to bring everyone through the Speed Force. And they do, and he drops Supergirl, Ryan Choi, and Lex Luthor off at the Monitor's home planet in the Monitor's time. But the Anti-Monitor attacks and knocks the rest of them throughout the Speed Force. It drops Kate in some kind of exchange between Oliver and Ray, which is the only point I can't figure out where it's from, to be honest. Because it looks like Palmer Tech, but I don't remember ever seeing that scene. I can't figure out where it's from. If y'all know where that scene is from, that Oliver is talking to Ray, let me know, but I don't remember. Jean is dropped back at the Dominator crossover. I can't remember the name of it. I don't remember the name of it, but the Dominator crossover, where he runs into Kara and Oliver from that point in time. There was one more, wasn't it? Oliver is dropped in the Elseworlds crossover from the previous year, and in exchange between him and Barry, when Barry tries to explain to him what happened, and Oliver remembers right away, which at first I was like, okay, that's a little convenient, but then I thought about it, he's the Spectre, so if anyone would remember right away what's going on, it would be Oliver. So I just kind of dismissed that. So, there's an exchange between them where Oliver finally explains to Barry that Barry and Kara were supposed to die, were fated to die in the Elseworlds crossover, and he intervened and got that arrow from the Monitor to stop Deacon and all that. But before all this even happens, the greatest cameo in the entirety, well, second greatest once we get to Part 5. Part 5 has the greatest cameo. But the second greatest cameo, if I was to rank the top 5 best cameos in this, alright? Number 5 would be Robert Wuhl. No, number 5 would be Tom Welling. 4, Robert Wuhl. 5 would be the Titans, because everybody said, no, the Titans aren't going to be involved in this. Well, too bad, they were. Number 5 would be the Titans. Number 4 would be Tom Welling. Number 3 would be Robert Wuhl. And number 2 would be this cameo I'm talking about. Before Barry does this, he's told by Oliver he has to get everyone back. After the Anti-Monitor attacks, everyone is split out throughout the multiverse. Throughout the Speed Force, sorry. And he's told by a vision of Oliver he has to get everyone back, including Oliver himself. So Barry super speeds on, and he's in Star Labs. And he's looking the other way, and he hears, hello? He turns around, and he gets face to face with Ezra Miller's Flash from the DCEU movies. Yeah. I was eating dinner. I was having a Polish kielbasa. I was eating dinner. I cut a piece off. I put it in my mouth. That scene happened. Spit it across the goddamn living room. And I just sat there. Because, wow. And at this moment, I thought to myself, that is the best cameo we have had in this entire crossover. Until we get to Part 5. And if y'all see Part 5, you may know what I'm talking about. And you may be going, he's so stupid. But it's me. But there was 3 moments that I popped hard in this crossover. I'll get to that in the next part. So after Barry talks to Oliver, and it's like the longest exchange between England, because he shows up, and the other ones very quickly. Sarah probably gets the worst of all the areas to be relocated to, because Sarah is sent back to after she died in season 2 of Arrow, or season 3 of Arrow, my bad. And she's basically a dead body. The Flash shows up, and okay, going into this, Mark Guggenheim was asked if Laurel, the Black Canary, would be involved in Crisis, and he said, Earth 1 Laurel is in Crisis. Now, to me, Laurel's non-involvement in this from the beginning was kind of sketchy. It was kind of just like, why? I mean, she was with Oliver for most of their season leading up to this. Why is she just suddenly not involved in this at all? And for my memory, Laurel only makes one appearance in this entire crossover, and it's the Earth 1 version, because this is where Sarah is dead, laying on the table, and she's talking to Diggle. Flash shows up. They don't know who he is. And I'm sitting there going, they should know who he is by now. This is like episode, well, at least episode 3 that this takes place, right? By then, the Flash should have been introduced. And I thought about it. Only Oliver would know about the Flash. But maybe, because the Sound and the Fury, or whatever the episode is. I don't know, that's not it. I don't know, whatever the episode is that the crossover with the, isn't it with the boomerang guy? I think. That's when they finally figured out. I didn't think straight when I was looking at this, but, so, yeah. He uses his lightning to wake up Sarah, and then he goes and gets the other ones. But we gotta go back to Mara-Novu's planet first, because Lex Luthor does a double cross. He gave himself powers, and he blasts Supergirl, he blasts Ryan Choi, and he goes to Mara-Novu's lab, and I guess he's knocked out Mara-Novu's wife, and he tells Mara-Novu, in uncertain terms, that if he does this experiment, it's gonna destroy the world or something, the universe or whatever. That's not exactly true, sort of, but whatever. And Ryan Choi actually convinces the Anti-Monitor not to do this stuff. And Supergirl and Lex have a fight scene, more padding, and then he convinces, Ryan Choi convinces the Monitor, Mara-Novu, not to do this. And then Barry zooms in, takes them away to the dawn of time, the Anti-Man universe in the dawn of time, and the Anti-Monitor is there. So that's why I say this whole episode was just padding, because it didn't matter what they did on Mara-Novu's planet, the Anti-Monitor was still going to be born because it's destiny. And I'm sitting there going, what was the point of this entire goddamn episode then? See, there was another instance, I can't remember specifically in this, where they tried to do something to stop it. It didn't work. And I'm like, so what was the point of that? Padding. They had to spread this out through 5 episodes, so they had to put in padding. That's it. So there's going to be a couple times where their plans aren't going to work because they need to be padding for when it eventually does work. And this is where the plan comes to work. We go to commercial, we come back, we got the Shadow Demons coming up, Monitor's there, Oliver's there, everyone else is there, and they got to fight. And, Oliver the Spectre, he tells Lex that when it's time, he'll know what to do. And we get this fight between everyone, and it's funny, because it was like, oh, this is for Oliver, and everything, and, I don't remember what Lex says anymore, but he says something like, Ryan Choi says, so you guys save the world all the time? And John's like, yeah. And Lex goes, no! And he's blasting. And, so Oliver uses his Spectre powers to blast up and create a new universe while he defeats the Anti-Monitor. But he needs help, and so Lex comes up with the idea that they have to use what's left of the book, that page that he has, to fan the flames. So what does they do? They just stand there and look up at the light. Couldn't they at least put their hands up or something? No, they just... Going into something like, okay, what are the Paragons actually going to do? Well, the answer was, stand around and look up at a light. So it's a little bit of a letdown, but we're going to get to the end of this because I got to get to part 5 here in a little bit. But so Oliver dies again, defeating the Anti-Monitor. Defeating the Anti-Monitor. Did you see that? Did you get it? And he says a new universe is being created. I think it works that not everyone was surrounding him. You just have Sarah and Barry. The two people he's closest with at this point. Sarah and Barry. So they're around him, and they cry, and he says his goodbyes, basically. He tells them to look after his family, and he dies. And then there's this big flash of white light. Episode ends. Because we'll get to this new universe in part 5. And the highlight of this part definitely was Ezra Miller's Flash showing up. And he did mention Victor when, Barry tries to talk to him and say, oh, I'm also the Flash. The what? Flash? He doesn't know the name. And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, he doesn't know the Flash name because in the movies, the only superhero names they use are Batman, Superman, and occasionally Aquaman. Because the other ones are called Victor, Diana, and Barry. They don't go by the superhero names because it's dark. So, yeah, he wouldn't know what the Flash is. But they both shake hands and they go, I'm Barry Allen. And Ezra Miller's Flash is like, what? No. It's like, I'm like, how could this be happening? And then, he starts to finish. He's like, I told Victor this could happen. I'm like, oh, there's a reference to Cyborg. All in all, part 4 was decent. But like I said, mostly padding to spread this crossover to 5 parts. And again, as I mentioned, we'll just get to part 5 later, but because going into this, I was like, what's Lex Luthor's part gonna be in this whole thing? And that now I know to pad out the episodes, because the 2 episodes he had a part in the plot with were mostly padding, basically. I mean, he was involved in part 3, I guess, but he was locked up for most of it. But yeah, decent episode, not too bad. Final part's coming up next. So, what are your thoughts on Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 4? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you.